Okay, afternoon. We just learnt about negatives, numbers like -2 minus 5, which gives us -7, correct? Alright. Now, oh yeah, by the way, you guys need to know this. The year is 1988. Okay, and so we have calculators, which are the wonderful Casio brand, and this is 1988, and so we have Casio, which I happen to be a fan of Casio. Okay, and of course, I'm sorry, I'm advertising. Alright, so today we're going to discuss multiplying and dividing by negative numbers. Okay, so suppose I have -2 times -3. That gives us +6 because a negative times a negative is a positive. What happens if I have this -6 times 5? That would be -30 because a negative always overrides a positive. Especially in this state, it does. Okay. Now, so how about, and also I'm sure you guys have wondered what this little dot means. The dot means multiplication. It's the same thing as saying 2 times 3, only we're just using a dot because in algebra later on we'll see things with the letter X involved, and we'll be getting those confused with multiplication, and so that's why we use dots or parentheses. So let's see. How about we have 6, I'll put up some problems, and then we'll see if we can solve them. Okay. So, -6 plus 3 would obviously be -3 because of the negative sign is in front of the biggest number, or the largest quantity as your book would say it. Okay, and in this case, remember, this negative comes up here and it now, so real quick, negative signs tend to be kind of bullies, and they want to have things their way. So what they're going to do is they're going to grow up like this, and then they're going to come down. And do you know what that sign makes? And do you know what that does to it? It makes it positive. So in this case, the answer would be 5, and it would be +5 because in front of the 3, it is the 3 is positive. Okay, so how about -2 times, 2 times -4 would be -8 because negatives overrule positives. Okay, how about 15 divided by -3? You can also write it like this. Alright, so we have a negative going into a positive. In this case it would be -5 because 5 times 3 is 15. And then negative, and then it would be negative, only in this case negative going into a positive. Now, you may be thinking that it would be like -3 times -5, which would be 15, and that is correct. You can also do it like that. Okay, suppose they give you the same thing, only this time it's the 15 that's negative divided by 3. That's supposed to be 3. Okay, 3 goes into -15. negative 5 times. And then you can also write it because multiplication, or division, is the opposite of multiplication. So 3 times negative 5 gives us negative 15 because the biggest one is negative, and also because it's multiplication. And it doesn't matter in multiplication or division, well yeah it does, but I mean specifically multiplication, that if it's negative, negatives tend to be the overall dictators in this case. Okay. Now, so this is sort of like the basics. Suppose they give you, alright, so what's another way to write 25%? One way would be 1/4. Another way would be 0.25. If you're going to change a percentage, oops, I meant to do this. If you're going to change a percentage into a decimal, then you just do 25, and then so it's the decimal points there, and you just move it over twice. So that's 0.25. Okay. So now suppose they tell you to change, let me think, 3/5 into a percentage. And alright, so you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's impossible. But au contraire. So we have, remember this line means to divide, and so we have this, and in this case 5 can't go into 3, but you add a 0, and then it can go into 30 6 times, and since we had to add a 0, we put a decimal point there. Okay, so we have it in a decimal. Now change it into a percent. So that would be 6 right here, and so we go over 1, then over 2. So that is 60%. Okay, so that's just kind of a preview of what we may be getting into. Okay. How much time do... oh, okay. Now, so what happens if we have... alright, so this first chapter is called Functions. Okay. Now, functions are your friends. That's why they begin with F. At least I think they do. Okay. So, a function is just a simple little agglomerated group of numbers and variables. Now, variables, real quick, are like letters. Okay, so let's see. Every time you have a function, you write it like this: f of x. That means a function of x. And then you usually see that on one side of the equal sign. Now, suppose they give you negative 3x plus 4. And they tell you that the function is negative 2. Now, so this is in place of the x, so 2 is x. Whenever they say this, it always means a function whose x is negative 2. Alright, so, and then they give you the function, and so this is how we're going to write it. So we do negative 3, and they tell us to put negative 2 in for x. That's what all that means right there. So we put negative 2 in plus 4. Now we have a lot of numbers, sort of. Now, remember parentheses, like I said earlier, parentheses means multiplication, and the bell's going to ring. So, goodbye.